Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning, Dr. G.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing okay. I'm a little tired, but that's normal. But
You
yes.
need some sun. The nature will boost,
You got that right.
will give you
To go
that.
outside or get some food or something like that?
I'm usually in Concord at Walden Pond once a year. I don't know that that's going to happen this year. But yeah, so we read Thoreau and we didn't read Walden Pond last class, but reading Emerson and Thoreau and all of these people from Concord, New England makes me, wish I were there. It's a really, really, I can relate to Emerson's content.
True.
I mean, when
True.
I read it, and then when you sit out at Walden Pond, it's unlike any other experience,
E-
at least in nature,
Exactly.
that you could ever have. So,
Well, do you have
Totally
any
agree.
plans for like the summer to go visit anywhere or what?
no, well, my husband and I are thinking of going to Vegas, but we're thinking of going to Vegas because we like Cirque du Soleil shows, and we would be going for the shows. I have to stay away
Okay,
from
I
gambling.
got you.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Right.
Oh my gosh, Mel, that's awesome. Yeah, you do.
Boston.
She's from Boston. Yeah, you
Boston.
do
Yeah.
need to visit Walden Pond. It's not that far. You can just take the train into Concord. Um, it's pretty cool.
Man, what do you get from the bodega? Is it bodega or the bodega?
There you go. Bodega. Oh my gosh.
Dr. G, are you originally from Texas or were you born
Yes,
somewhere else?
unfortunately. Yes, I'm from Texas. I do not care for this state at all. I would love to live abroad, but my husband is a diehard Texan. He doesn't want to leave Texas. And I've even said, well, you can come visit, I'll be over in, San Juan de Allende, and you can come visit, I'll be on the beach. He's like, no. But yeah, if I had my way, I'd live. I mean, I've lived abroad in Nassau before. But if I had my way, yeah, we would not be living in Texas.
Yeah, I'm a mixture. I've always been into Texas. I love it, but I also don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
It's also the only state that I really kind of trust because I like it so much because I've only lived here. And I've seen Florida. I've been to Florida a few times just with those storms. No. No, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I lived in
I don't
Florida
live in
for a
Newport. I
little
heard things about that place. So no earthquakes. I'm good.
while.
I had my sister went to Italy once, and that was seemed like a fun trip. So I'd like to like go see other places
Mhm.
outside of the United States, just because why not? You only live once.
Yeah.
And once you live in one place for a little bit, it's kind of like, well, here we are.
Here we are.
Because everyone's like, oh, the capital's so nice. And I'm like, I can literally drive 20 minutes to go see the capital any day.
True.
Tell me something I don't know.
That's funny, Hayden. Yeah, that would be ideal, Mel, to be able to travel and live, have a job that allows you to live in different parts of the world. That'd be very cool.
Yeah,
I
we need
agree.
an economy that pays better. So
Like the military?
because it's not great.
Well, there you go, Michael, like the military. That is one way of seeing the world. You're absolutely correct.
Hey, that's what they tell you. That's how they get you.
You,
I
you,
got
you're right
lucky.
about that, Hulum. That's how they tell you. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, travel and see the world and blah, blah, blah.
You stuck in Louisiana.
I've
Something like
been
that.
there twice.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. I got lucky. I was able to travel. But yeah, go to like the Philippines or Vietnam or Thailand. The dollar goes very far there. It's a good place to retire, I would say.
Cool. That's very cool. All right. Well, I guess we should get started in discussing Emerson. I believe Jacob and I just forgot who the other person is. Danielle, I believe. Are you both here by chance?
I'm here,
Okay,
Jacob.
Jacob's here. Is Danielle here? Have you heard from Danielle?
I couldn't connect.
Okay, I don't see her. Okay, I don't see her here, so do your best, Jacob, on your own. And of course, we'll help you as well. So, not to worry about that.
Okay. I'm a little nervous though.
No, there's no need to be nervous. We all know each other in here. Everything's cool. It's all good.
Yeah. Okay, welcome to our discussion on Ralph Waldo Emerson's background and his work Nature. Emerson greatly influenced the American Transcendentalist movement and reshaped our understanding of the individual's connection to nature. Today, we will explore Emerson's ideas about nature, beauty, and the human spirit, and their reflection in his literary style. So my first question is, what does Emerson mean when he says, our age is retrospective? Easy start.
You know how the class is. I just need a minute for the brain to start
Sure.
going.
I can answer first. When Emerson says our age is retrospective, he's nothing that the contemporary society often looks to the past for wisdom, learning from history, ancient texts, and previous generations' experiences. In essence, viewing the world thoughts their eyes. He implies that this traditional retrospective outlook might look fresh with perspectives and help intellectual advancements. Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, so he was uh he kind of like turned against his religious beliefs, right? So one of the things I got about like just reading about transcendentalism and reading about uh you know Emerson and basically is that he was Unitarian, I guess. And I'm not exactly sure what that means, to be honest with you. But he at some point was like, you don't we don't need to be like disconnected from God. We need to be like, we are connected. Everything is all connected. So I think, yeah, I don't know. I think the experience, as mentioned in his background, like with his wife dying, and I think he had some, life-changing things happen to him. So that when when he says our age is retrospective, he means the age of humans, basically. And so he changed over time. So he's looking, I think he looks back and says, and disagrees with the way things were. And then decides to go in a new direction.
Mm-hmm. I think he's also obsessed with the individual's own experiences with nature, taught himself better than the books or religious books like Bible, Quran, or other things.
Right.
I
Yeah.
honestly
Yeah.
still think the same things, like Muhammad write the Quran. I don't know what year exactly. It is so old thoughts and it's so old traditions. And this is not exactly, not even like little bit match with our current generation and their thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Everything today is like, traditions that we are applying centuries ago,
Right. And
especially in Islam. My family is Muslim, so I know.
Right on. Okay, cool. So you're speaking from personal experience, and
Mm-hmm.
I had in my short lifetime, I did kind of go into the traditional religious beliefs route, of life. And I at some point kind of decided that that really wasn't for me, and I kind of moved away from that. And then so in some aspects, I do kind of relate to um, the same kind of, or the story of Emerson, that he kind of decided that he wanted to, he's had a new view on spirituality and like the connection of with nature and the universe, and or just the world. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I mean, it's just different. It's just like a different way to go about it, but way to like go about this to get to the same point, which is, this sort of elevated consciousness or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Can you repeat your question, Jacob?
Sorry.
Can
Please.
you repeat the question again?
Yeah. What does Emerson mean when he says our age is retrospective?
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's the first line in the introduction part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since it is the first sentence, you do have to kind of continue for a little while before you figure it out.
I think we can pass the second question. My second question is, Emerson believes that individual can achieve a profound understanding of the universe, thought, solitude in nature. How do you interpret significance of solitude in our relationship with nature and ourselves? Does solitude offer a unique path to insight that differs from collective experiences? Yeah, also put in the chat the question.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Melanie.
Okay, so I definitely think that solitude, and Emerson seems to think this as well. Like there's just certain things that you are only going to be able to, it's kind of like meditation, I guess, in a way. Like, in order to connect with yourself on that level, you kind of do have to take away or break away from the everyday parts of the world, like stress and all that, kind of remove yourself from that, even if
Mhm.
it's, just with meditation, even if it's just in a different room or something. But he's speaking specifically in nature. There's just certain things, certain parts, even with religion, there is a little bit of solitude involved in religion, like as well. Like there's that personal relationship you have with your higher power. And I think that's a little bit of what he's meaning as well. Like you kind of have to get into nature, you kind of have to listen a little bit and figure out what that connection is and where it comes from. And you can't really do that. I mean, there is a way to do that with other people, but I think that solitude is going to bring out a different aspect of yourself always. And it's just one of the best ways to learn about yourself. And I think Emerson was probably really good at being alone. And I think all people who are soul searching a little bit get comfortable with that as well.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. I don't know who's the first, but I think Marcus.
Good morning, as always. And you know what? And I totally agree uh with Melanie. Once you get in tune with nature, you really have to allow yourself to clear all your thoughts, whatever is crowding your mind. And once you able to do that, then solitude and everything else will follow. It's just like, reading it, his part, like, and Julio can agree with me, like when you go on deployment, you don't have that type of, you don't have social media, you don't have a TV, you don't have all of that, the necessities that you need to
Mhm.
be allowed out in the world. You're by yourself. It's just you, your weapon, and the stars and the skies, and that's it. And there's been times like I had like a night shift, and I'm outside just by myself, and I'm just like looking at the stars. I'm looking out, and I'm just like, man, this is really neat. And for a moment, like everything that was crowding my mind about deployment and everything, it just went away. I got in tune, and it was just like it was really cool and neat. So I definitely understand uh what he Emerson was definitely getting at. Like, man, like once you get out there to that sea, you just become a part of it, and you just get real relaxed, and it's just like everything just goes away. It just goes away. It's crazy. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Mhm. Thank you, Marcus. Rachel?
Yeah, I kind of had something similar. I just feel like it plays a really crucial role in like just the relationship that we create with ourselves. I feel like we can kind of fully immerse ourselves in like just things in like the natural world, and we have that ability and that time to like reflect and just kind of like really work on like personal growth. And I'm like a really big believer in like that self-awareness is extremely important. And I feel like having that time not only like with yourself but also in a more, secluded, like calm area, I feel like that can absolutely like allow that. And I just feel like, I don't know, like I'm a psych major, so this is like this is very relevant to me. I'm like, oh, self-awareness, like, unplugging, all that. That to me is a very like I find that that's a really significant thing. But I think it's just kind of like that. It provides like a sanctuary for both like inner and outer like exploration, just being able to kind of nurture like spiritual and emotional and mental well-being. I think that that's something that can kind of give you the opportunity to do. And whether or not it's related to like a religious or a spiritual, connection. I feel like just in general, even if you don't have any sort of beliefs like that, I feel like even just being able to kind of spend time with yourself, away from a lot of the distractions and more like toxic things of the world, I feel like it kind of really gives you that ability to kind of understand yourself and become more comfortable as an individual. Because I feel like you can also be so influenced and so affected by other people and other opinions and things going on in the world. So I definitely feel like that's like um a very important thing for sure.
Yeah, definitely agree with you. Julio?
Yes, definitely agree with you, Rachel. It does kind of have like this psychoanalytic approach to things, like kind of a humanistic perspective, and that like some theories like involve like self-actualization, and you don't really reach that until you're older. And I feel like this kind of ties into your last question, in that like in solitude, I think that there is some reflection, and so in a way that age is retrospective, you're looking back on your previous experiences, and um,
Mhm.
you're achieving a different perspective, and reaching that harmony, I guess, with nature and accepting the past or learning from it, you know, and being content with how things are. Yeah, so I think it all ties in interconnectedness.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Michael?
Yes, I think that just kind of also similar along the same kind of lines that people were saying before is that just from my own experience that there's a lot of details and like information in nature that you don't even notice when you're so busy with your life, you know. And so it's like, yeah, you have to, you know, get rid of you got to get focused. I think you know, Emerson talked about focusing inward, but you also need to, I think, in a way to get to that is through nature. You know, you minimize your, you know, thoughts about other things, and then kind of get in tune and focus on the natural, you know, surroundings, and then that kind of, you know, it could be like the smallest thing, like a bug or whatever, you know, and then you'll reflect on that and relate it to yourself somehow, you know.
Mhm.
I was outside, but we've been having some really beautiful weather like the last few days, and I was looking at, I was like just taking out the trash the other day, and the sky was like so blue, you know, and I was like, wow, it's so blue. And I looked up and there's like these birds, and there was like 20 birds, and they were all like flying in a circle, you know, probably on one of those like gusts of like wind or whatever, you know, like something. And I was just like, that is the coolest looking thing. I mean, the whole sky is clear, but then you see like this group of birds all flying in like a pattern, you know, and I don't know. You just when you start, I started to think about like how and why do they do that, you know? And then I just went back inside because I was with my son, and he was like, "I don't care." Uh, um, but yeah, you know, so my point is that when you stop to think about like what's around you, you start to think about the like how it works, and you know, what does it mean and stuff like that.
Mhm. Dr. G?
So I'll piggyback off of what Michael just said, and I think I don't know who else said it a while ago, but that as we grow older, maybe it was you, Jacob, but as we grow older, we tend to stop a little bit more to smell the roses, if I can use Marquis, you know, words. When you're younger, the majority of us, when we're younger, are, you know, fast paced. We want to do things. We're just moving quickly. We want to get a job. We want to earn money. We want to spend it, you know, depending on what your goal is. But it's sitting still in solitude is not necessarily a priority for many, and it really should be. I love those of you in the chat who are posting, you know, that you take time for yourself at the end of the day, etc. You know, most people don't do that. I'm going to say most. I don't have the statistic. I don't know for sure that it's most. I'm just saying a good many don't take the time to do that. It's like, I don't have time to stop and just relax, right? But when
Mhm.
you grow older, I'm not that old, but as you grow
No,
older, um, that matters more to you. You know what I mean? You need the time to stop and just reflect. And you know, Michael, I love the example you just mentioned about, you know, going outside and throwing the trash and what you saw. It's a little more difficult. It's not impossible because, again, Mel, I think, is the one that said she sits on her balcony, you know, and decompresses, and it's very possible to do that in the city. Um, So really that can't be an excuse. But obviously, if you have access to, you know, parks, and I mean, which we do, right? If you have a chance to go to some place like that, it's very relaxing. If you really can tune out everything that's going on, like homework that's due and papers you're writing and jobs that you're trying to, you know, do everything at and so forth, it really is helpful for the mind. And speaking of psychology majors, it really is helpful to self-reflect and just take, you know, even if it's 15 minutes of your time to just do nothing. Really think about nothing. Just close your eyes and enjoy the sounds of nature and, you know, how that makes you feel. I know I'm sounding very preachy, but I'm just, you know, I fully support Emerson's view or the idea that we can be one with nature. And in essence, that means we're one with God. Because transcendentalists, if you read the little, you know, the background about them, they don't say that there is no God. They don't deny God's existence, right? They're just simply saying that you can connect with God in a different way than going to a church and listening to a sermon, that kind of thing, or reading the Bible. Just like you started off saying, Jacob, it's not necessarily
Mhm.
out of textbooks and whatnot. It's actually experiencing it, right? So
And yeah,
anyway, I just want to share that
and
with you.
today even like the religious guys like speaking about something every Friday, especially in Muslim community, in mosques. They're not talking about their own experiences or they try to teach something to the people. They speak exactly from the Quran that is not matched with society. They are still talking about women should not wear that, women should not do this, do not send your girls to this place, do not let your daughters to wear that things, or do not let them to eat something like this, and do not, I mean, let them to grow. They're talking about that kind of things. This is like insane for our girls. I mean,
I'll just follow up with something. This really, well, this is mentioned in his background, but it's not fully what I consider to be fully highlighted. You know, we're told that Emerson was a guest speaker at, I believe it was Harvard University, and he, you know, his address to the graduating class, I forgot what year it was basically forget everything you learned. These instructors don't know what the hell they're talking about. The only way you're really, really going to know and fully understand is to go experience it. Go out and experience the world. That's the best way to learn. And of course, the Harvard officials were livid, you know, because they didn't know in advance that he was going to say that. He just stood up there and he said, and what were they going to do? Stop him in mid sentence? And they let him talk, but they were so angry. He wasn't invited back to Harvard for years
mhm,
because of that particular speech. And that's kind of, you know, what you're talking about. He was actually using his own personal experience. He'd been to Harvard. He'd learned textbook style. He'd been a minister, right? He'd been preaching sermons, etc. But when he began to question his faith, and that really started, it started before his first wife died, but when she died, that was really the you know main reason why he really started to question religion and in other words how it was presented in the Bible. And he was like, we weren't there, we don't know that this actually happened. And well, when you say that about the Bible, oh my God, that's blasphemous. So he did step out of the norm when he made that speech to Harvard graduates. And you know, obviously the consequence was he wasn't asked back
mhm.
to lecture or to deliver an address or anything like that. But yeah, he is definitely. You reminded me of that when you were talking about how some people what they preach today. You know what I mean? They're not necessarily coming from experience, but just what they think
Yeah.
is best for people.
At the yeah, it says in 1837, 5 years after leaving the ministry, he was asked to address the Harvard Divinity School. But at the end, it says that Harvard eventually sort of accepted this new way and sort of merged it into theirs, and they're kind of like, okay, but like because they couldn't fight it anymore in a way. The way I read it was like, it was like a movement that they that they were like, okay, fine,
Yes, I agree with you that eventually they recognized that it wasn't just Emerson, but there were many other high end, if I'll call them that, lecturers, who proposed that kind of way of thinking. And so Harvard eventually had to, accept in whatever way they decided to accept it.
Right.
But at the time, that was, Emerson was like the first to stand up and verbally say something like that. And Harvard, like I said, the instructors and everyone there was very angry with him because he was basically saying they don't know anything. You yourself go out and learn it yourself. That's how you're going to learn, is through your own experience, right? And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, he was very confident in himself.
Yes, during the time, I'm just looking at your comment, Alex, in the chat. Writing was the tool that was used to convey messages, ideas, opinions, arguments, whatever the case might be. There was no phone. There was no, again, they had newspapers and they wrote essays and they lectured. Emerson was very successful on the lyceum scene, which basically means he was, hired and he went out and lectured in front of a group of people, and there was a Q&A and that kind of thing, just kind of like what we have that kind of um, those kinds of speakers today. But we call them motivational speakers or whatever the case might be. But for Emerson, he was, most of the essays, if not all of his essays, he verbally delivered them. And he was even more successful. He did so in the United States, but he was even more successful abroad. And so when we were talking about Thoreau on Tuesday, and we were talking about how Emerson asked him to stay with his family while he went on tour in Europe, he was going to work, is the bottom line. He was being paid to deliver these speeches, and people in Europe just thought he was like, a rock star, the rock star of literary, the literary time. And so he was very, very successful doing that. Now, for the time, not everybody could do that, right? They didn't have the means, they didn't have the time, etc. They just couldn't afford to do that. Emerson just happened to be a good speaker. He wasn't like Edwards, who delivered, in the hands of the sinners, in the hands of an angry God, and who just delivered everything monotone. He had inflection, that kind of thing, but he was extremely successful on the Lyceum scene, and not everybody can make that claim. Thoreau certainly wasn't. He didn't have that kind of money, and I think we're told in the background, when his first wife died, when he married her, he inherited a large sum of money with her. That was, her dowry was extremely large. And so when she died, he had access to all that money. And then he continued making money on his own. So he was very successful for the time period, which we can't say for most writers or a lot of writers during that particular time.
Thank you, Koji. Okay. My last question is, Emerson discussed the concept of seeing nature through one's own eyes rather than through the lens of tradition or secondhand knowledge. In the digital age, How does Emerson's call for an original relation to the universe impact our interaction with nature?
Will you please put that in the chat? Oh,
Yes,
there it is. Thank you.
probably Emerson didn't think about the Apple Vision Pros. That we can just watch a video or almost close experience with the nature. At Moody.
Well, I think the key term that sort of differs it from other philosophies would be the original relation to the universe. So, I mean, I think that's a matter of like self-interpretation. It seems to me that like he essentially sees, and we've discussed it. Nature is essentially like a manifestation of God itself. It's like a form of God that you can interact with as a human. So how you choose to interact with it is your own choice, and it's up to you.
Mm-hmm. Michael?
He says something, and I can't, I don't have time to try to find it, but he says something about knowledge is beyond, well, now I'm looking at it. Knowledge is beyond empirical experience. It's actually Kant that maybe said that. I don't know. But he says something about knowledge. And so in the digital age, in the time we've talked, I mentioned this, you know, when we're talking about isolation and that kind of thing, and like the phone, you know, we are the smartphone is like a constant source of like well, now it is with apps and all that stuff, is like a constant like fire hose of information, you know, that most of the time isn't very, I mean, I don't know. It depends on how you use it, you know. So, but it could be not very helpful, you know, or productive to like your life, but it could be a source of knowledge, you know, it could be the way you could use technology to enhance your knowledge, you know, in ways that weren't possible before, you know, with the internet and with the mobility of the device, you know. So I think, you know, I think it just depends on how you wield it, you know. So do you use it for entertainment that doesn't really, that's just kind of like passes the time, or do you use it to answer questions that you're curious about and, you know, increase your knowledge level?
Yeah. Dr. G?
I'm going to piggyback off of what Michael said, and also I'm going back to the question, and Modi mentioned this about the phrase "original relation to the universe." And you know, my thought as Michael was talking is, how many of you can go a day without your phone? I'm not, you know, you don't have to verbally answer me. I'm simply saying, think about it. How many of you would actually be able to go a day without your phone without kind of like being nervous and freaking out and wonder what, oh my God, you know, I mean, I've forgotten my phone at home before. And at first it was like, oh my God. And then after a while, it was like, you know what? If somebody really, really needs to find me, they can. They can. I don't need to have my phone attached to me all the time. And this reminds me of your part, the quote that you included from Emerson, the original, you know, connection to the universe. That seems to me kind of like what Marcus was saying a while ago, and Michael too, about being outside with the stars, not having phones, not having access to a television, you know, not having access to any kind of digital age media, if you will. And could you actually manage that? Some of you will say yes, some of you will say no. I mean, I know I can. I know I can. And I'll be honest, there have been times when my husband and I are going to go out and run errands, and I intentionally leave my phone at home because my mentality is if you really need to reach me, you can find me. Or if it's not an emergency, I'll call you back. Right? It's that kind of mentality. But I really liked that, Michael, what you were saying kind of brought that to my attention, and Aunt Modi, what you highlighted about that Emerson quote. It is interpretive. You're absolutely correct. What does it mean, the original, relation to the universe? It is interpretive, but my thought immediately was, yeah, in this digital age, how many of us can survive without our phone for a weekend, much less, a day? Just putting that out there.
I
Yeah.
did it multiple times. And also as a kid, I was the weirdest high schooler ever, so bear with yourselves. I left my phone at home, like accidentally. And I remember going to the school and looking for it. And then I'd be like the most excited kid ever that I left my phone at home. Like I was so excited. And I didn't care because I had books, I had classmates, I had other things going on. Like I was so excited. I was like, yes, my phone's at home. But like, yeah, I feel like now in these days it's kind of like built in, especially because like what happened with COVID and stuff like that. It's built into like our day, like even like with work. Like it's like for me, I have to have it on me because if a teacher wants to get in contact with me, that's the only way that they would be able to without having to, teleport to their room. So like those are the kinds of things that it's like an easy way to communicate. But other than that, like honestly, I feel like it's a little bit too built into our lives, especially with I know Star Test is coming up for most of the grades kids schools, and apparently pen and pencil aren't a thing anymore. That's just done with. It's all on the computer, which I think is bizarre because like how are you supposed to do that kind of stuff on a computer and expect it to go well and expect kids to grow up in a way where they don't know what it looks like without an iPhone. And I'm young enough to where I am older than the iPhone, but not older than phones in general. Um, but it's things that I don't understand is like these. I do know that I think the older we are, like our age, I'm 22, so around my age and above could handle a little bit without a phone. But I think younger people is where it kind of disconnects because they wouldn't be able to handle that. And I feel like that's one of the things that we deal with all the time is having to tell a child, hey, put the phone down, put the phone down. You don't need that right now. You don't need to do that right now. That you don't need to be on the computer. That you can do that when you get home. Like that's something the hardest thing for a kid to do, especially in this time. So like letting y'all know.
Are you still allowed, I mean, are you allowed to use scratch paper, like if to work out a calculation or something like that?
It's more so online. So it's like on their computers, they have their own notes on a computer. They have
Okay.
paper. It's just whenever it comes to Star Test, it's completely online.
But I mean, you just have it there? Almost,
Most
it's
people
almost the reverse.
most people
It's
don't
almost
use the
like
pencil.
I
Most
I would I would be uncomfortable if I didn't have like
hmm
a way to just write like some scratch notes. Like that.
they have to figure it out on their computer. They have to open up a little note thing and they'll type it on their
Yeah.
notes on the computer.
You have to be a pretty good typist.
You gotta be pretty good at everything. But like, yeah, I mean, they have a few practice here and there, but like, still, I think it's bizarre. Like, it's completely online, and
Yeah,
even so, a lot of assignments are online too now.
do they still teach keyboarding?
Um, not really. It's just take out your laptop and start working on things if you need to, and then we'll do some things. Like English is on paper, but during the STAR test, it's not. So on a normal daily basis, they'd be learning English on paper and stuff like that. So there's still paper, It's just whenever it comes to testing, it's going to be on a computer.
Mhm.
And whenever they're practicing something, usually like math, let's say, that
Yeah.
would be a game on the computer.
I
There's a
can
math.
I can look at I can look at a document and type it without looking at the keyboard.
Yeah,
If
but
I
I don't
couldn't
think
do
they
that,
know that. They
yeah,
don't really know where the keys are.
yeah.
And even like, so spelling is not great either. And most of the teachers are like, well, it's okay. And I'm like, no, it's really not okay that they don't know how to spell most words. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all know how it actually is, because I can see it like next. I see it like almost like every day of how they spell, but it's not great and it's kind of scary.
Interesting. Thanks.
Thank you. Marcus?
It just this conversation is so, it's good because I'm gonna put this out there, I'm not old. I graduated in 2000. So in that time frame, like cursive writing, signature, keyboarding, uh hands-on cooking, baking classes, we had that in school. Now they don't. My son, he's in 10th grade. His Spanish class is online. Yes. Buenos dias. I can speak better Spanish than he. His Spanish class, yes, his Spanish class is online. They had to go to Google Translate.
Not surprised.
Come on, Brenda. You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me. But that's what we're going to. Everything is so tech savvy till it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. Like my son, he's in 5th grade. Like I literally had to drag him outside just to get in tune with nature. And he's just like, okay, Dad, can we go in? Can we get Robux? I need some Robux because I need to get, and I'm just like, not today. Not today. Give me 2.5 hours, 7 o'clock, then, but it's just like they would die. It's just like, I need and it's just like, it's crazy. Cause even my son asked, he's like, Dad, he was like, I know like y'all done have cell phones, but how did you become so tech savvy? I was like, at some point I had to that adjustment of learning the smartphones and learning the new tablets and learning the watch with all the stuff on it and stuff. But I was just like, but you gotta realize during that time frame, we didn't grow up with that. As soon as we got home from school, it was change your clothes, do your homework, do your chores, and we was outside. Nowadays, kids are allergic to sunlight and the wind and the air, and it's just like it doesn't make sense. But and again, Emerson just really just broke it down to you just really had to get in tune with nature. That's your natural, for the body to just really just grow and heal itself. Actually, the sun is like your best vitamin D. Early in the morning sun, that's your best vitamin D. Let it hit your skin, wake you up. That's like 2 cups of coffee in the morning, and then you good. But the kids don't understand that. Then it's like trying to break it down to them. They give you that like, huh? So I definitely understand, where you come from, Alexandra, about like the whole STAR test and how they do stuff online, and it's mind blowing. And then I saw someone in the chat that said they substitute for 9th grade. You're absolutely correct. They don't have books. Most schools don't have books. They have iPads. The teacher says, "Hey, pull out your iPad and do the work that you continued from last time." I'm just like, iPad. I said, "Y'all got iPads?" Like, yeah, 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 we got iPads. I said, "What? Where are your books?" Books? What do you mean books? What are books? I'm just like, it's crazy. It's crazy. But that's all I have to say about that.
Thanks, Marcus.
Marcus, your hand's still up. So you know. Also, just
Thank
to
you.
kind of circle back, I want to just add one other thing. For people who are kind of like, what? I know kids as young as third grade, which just letting y'all know, age-wise, that's 8 to 9, who already are aware of TikTok. And so that's one of the things that like teachers have to remind them is like, okay, you need to study. No TikTok, no YouTube, none of that kind of stuff. So that's how disconnected it is right now.
So there are rules. I'm sorry, this is like a little bit of a tangent, but there are rules about like, okay, you have to put your phone away during class, right?
Yes, but if they follow the rules is another thing. It's a very weird generation. They're more of like, okay, I'm gonna throw a tantrum until I get my way. So it depends on the teacher too. Some teachers are like, I don't want to hear this kid complain anymore, so whatever. And then some will actually go through it. But for the school that I work with, it is a rural. Other schools, I can't speak for them. I was in a middle school once, and they didn't really care. So it depends.
Gotcha.
I was kind of hearing that the newer generation, I guess Gen Alpha it is, that they like are very almost like very, very behind in a lot of things. And I know you mentioned like their spelling, but I've heard that it's like from, teachers that are, and they like younger teachers are saying like it's crazy how many like kids like they can't like have basic spelling because their phone or their computer auto corrects their spelling. Like they don't do things on paper, everything is done for them online. And whether or not like, you do have those resources that can do that for you, it's the same as like having a calculator. Like, yeah, you can use a calculator to do things, but it's also going to be useful to be able to know how to do things yourself. Because, given we have like something that happens where, technology all of a sudden isn't an option, like you're screwed. So I was hearing that like the newer generations are extremely behind, and a lot of the times too, it's a lot of like some parents are like, well, my kid is an angel, they can't do any wrong, like, they have their phone. So a lot of it's like the kids are a problem, but the parents are also a problem. And every kid is like born with an iPad in their hand now, and they all have access to technology to be able to do all these things. It's pretty crazy. Honestly, it's like I don't know, like it makes parenting seem like, I don't know, it's like I can't imagine. I'm 20, so I'm like I can't imagine like how to raise a kid the exactly right way and not have them, be somewhat behind or in line with whatever's going on. I don't know. It's crazy. It's pretty bizarre.
Julio?
Yeah, I feel like kind of at the end of the day, like it's up to us, whenever we become parents or whatever, is like to instill a discipline, to create like a balance in our kids. And yeah, I don't know. It is unfortunate that some kids do have parents who just shove technology in their face, like that, just to basically parent for them in a way, but I think there also is a lot of single parenting going on and stuff. So imagine a single parent having to work, a job or two, and then also be a parent. I can also see how that's difficult too. So I don't know. There's different aspects of it, but I think creating that balance is what is important. And because in a way it's inevitable, the way we're moving.
Yeah. Good.
Oh.
Alexandra?
Oh, my bad.
Sorry. If you think about it this way, most parents right now have more than 2 kids. So with like the elementary kids, like they have a lot of siblings. I'm just gonna say that right now. Um, and I also think that parents don't want to be mean, and I'm saying mean as in that way of like how maybe our parents were, is like you need to put that down kind of like way, and have to deal with like the argument side of that. Um, so I think it's easier for them to give the kid the technology and what they want rather than having to be like, oh, you need to put that away or else you're going to be in big trouble, kind of. Because it's also, I don't know if you've heard of this, but like gentle parenting, that's things that go into school too, is they want to be gentle on the kid and not want to be considered, I guess, rude. It's not really rude to tell a kid, hey, you need to pay attention in class, or hey, you need to stop doing this. That I don't think that's necessarily rude, but I do think not only is it just the technology that's an issue, it's also behavior wise. There's a lot of kids who are fourth and up who still throw tantrums and who will just complain and be mad and everything. And I feel like that's not gonna get anybody anyway. And it's like if they can't go outside to do outside to just look at nature for a minute to get away from everything else, then how are they gonna be able to go through the rest of each grade? Like it doesn't make any sense to me. But also like, there's not much we can do about it unless it is your kid. But yeah, so most things are gentle parenting because most people want to be nicer to the kids and not have to deal with those kinds of consequences and argue with them.
Mhm. Mm. Thank you. Marcus?
So coming from a parent standpoint, I totally agree 1,000%. It just, it depends on how the parent raises that child. And then going back to like what Julio was saying, and I totally agree about the single parenting. But it's kind of like a 50-50 thing because when I grew up, it was just my mom. But I had to realize and understand it was a different time. This was, I'm gonna put that out there. So I was born in 81. So you can going through that time frame in that early 90s, it was different. We didn't have phones, we didn't have social media, we didn't have all those things. We had outside. Parents were tough because of the
Oh,
upbringing. Now, with this new generation, you have some of the parents who are 23, 24 years of age, and they're not understanding that whole parenting because, like you say, they want to do the gentle parenting, and it's just like, oh, they're crying, but here's a tablet. Because, like, I go to like, you all probably exactly, Mark, babies raising babies. You've seen people at Walmart, kids having huge tablets or iPads, and they trying to grocery shop. And I'm looking at them like, what? Why does this child? Because I tell my son real quick, hey, son, you either like it or you're going to love it. Like, what are we doing? I even told my kid, hey, I come up to the school and whoop your butt, and I don't even care what's going on. Like, we're not going to do that. Yeah, sir. And I'm just like, oh, what are we doing? What's going on? So I guess, and then again, it just, like you say, it trickles back down to the parent of how they were raised, how they view things, and what are they wanting to do. Because even some single parents still have that old generational of how to do things, and not just shove a tablet or give them a tablet. Hey, you come home, you change your clothes, you do your homework, do your chores, and get outside. I tell my kids that. Now on the weekend, that's cool. You don't have school, I take that and everything else. But exactly, man, you gotta set that boundary. Hey, what are we doing? Oh, my bad, Dad. Hey, today Thursday. We know what Thursday is. Trash gets up, trash goes out. Let's get to it. Oh my. But but most parents be like, I'll get it, don't worry. Um, Dad, can you? I need some Jordans, and I need the new Jordans because everybody else is wearing them. I'm just like, that's fine. But what are we doing about these grades and everything else? So once we get these grades, and then we can talk. We and again, it goes back to some parents want their child, or the parents want to be the child's friend first and not the parent first. They want to be cool and wear the kicks with the kid. I'm just like, nah, that that daddy don't go that way. I'm old school. We gonna keep it this way, and then we're gonna keep chucking. But I totally understand. I mean, it's a great conversation. This is a good conversation. I love it. I love it.
Well, thank you, Marcus. Well, I don't have a kid, but when I think about today generations and talk about them, talk about my past again, and they are just looking my face and like I'm talking like bullshit. I'm saying them like when I was a kid, there was not even electricity in my village. Where I'll grow up in Turkey, and my family was a farmer, and we don't have electricity yet. And my biggest like me and my friends, like our biggest fun is just finding a biggest dog in the village. So we're just doing this all day, or just like walking around in the farm and stealing some fruits and putting them together and eating together. And I don't even think that today's childs recognize any plants that eat a wolf. So so it's funny. Yeah, Julio.
Yeah, I think growing up, in like rural areas, or or maybe you're in a third world country or something, like I feel like it does have its advantages in a way, because you become grateful for little things, and like those like genuine interactions, or things that happen, like you just said, like you have those memories. But sorry, I'm carrying this rabbit hole further. But um kind of like what Marcus was saying, is that I feel like it's just the domino effect, like tech, uh America itself. Like I feel like we talk about how we grew up, and how times were different, and now I feel like we've just gotten further into like the individualistic culture, you know and tech has kind of promoted isolation amongst us. And I think with that, we run into all the issues that we were talking about, like kids don't know how to, talk to their parents or interact with others, like or just be social, and then also like with that comes accountability, like online, you get instant gratification, so you're constantly getting whatever you want whenever you want it, and also you can say whatever you want without having the repercussions. I feel like back in the day, like you said some shit to some kid, like it's on site, like you're gonna get hit or whatever, you're gonna find out. And I also feel like back then, well, with everything, like there's been like a diminishing sense of community. And so like back then, like you knew your neighbors, who lived where, you had those relationships. Now like I feel like you're less likely to send your kid out and just, on the street and have fun, or whatever. It's not, things aren't how they used to be.
Mhm.
Um, So yeah, I feel like in a way we're kind of victims of our culture.
Yes.
You know, very individualistic versus a collectivist culture. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Marcus?
Hey Julio, I'm gonna add 2 more cents to that so we can have 5 cents. And I totally
There you
agree
go.
with you on that. I totally agree with you on that. Because me, I know just about everybody in my neighborhood, and my son gets so irritated. He's just like, Dad, why do you talk to them? He's just like, "Oh, why do you talk? Like, stop talking to them." I was like, son, first of all, it's good to know your neighbors. You want to know who living beside you. Just come to find out, I was just talking to my neighbor the other day, yesterday. Come to find out, there's a pedophile that lives in my neighborhood that like lives 2 streets over at the top. I said, what? A pedophile? I said, God. Then talking today, cause like, and it's a man thing, you know. We drop our kids off at school and we sit in the parking lot and just talk, you know, just man stuff. Then come to find out 2 weeks ago, a kid got snatched up by the school, and I'm just like, what? So it's just like it's stuff like that that people don't want to converse with other people just to learn or even just to talk amongst people because everybody's afraid or that's none of my business or I don't want to talk. It's just like it's okay to talk. It's okay to know your neighbor, you know. And I stand outside my garage and I just stand there and wave at everybody. I'm like, Dad, who is that? I don't know. I'm just waving. I don't know. But it's
Yep,
okay
yep.
to talk. It's okay to speak and it's okay to talk. But I can tell you just about any. I ain't gonna say any and everything, but I know my neighbors. I want to know who I'm living by. Because if the, I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna get off. Prime example. Now I talk now 2 years ago. I talked to this neighbor. We talk every day. Hey, how you doing? Blah blah blah. One day I'm outside standing in front of my garage, and the undercover cops pull up, FBI pull up, kick in this door and this and that. And I'm like, what's going on? Come to find out, he done stole a dog. He done bought a dog from Germany through customs, and it wasn't registered or something like that. And they came in and kicked in his door. I said, what? I said, son, see, that's why you gotta know your neighbors. You gotta know your neighbors. Cause that blew my
For
mind.
sure.
We stole a dog from Germany. Lord have mercy. All right, that's all I gotta say about that. Sorry about that. I'm
I
rambling.
will say if you want to like be connected and like what's going on near you, which is kind of anti what we're talking about right now, download the Citizen app. I don't know if anybody has that, but it like gives you alerts of like what's going on in like
Citizen.
areas near you. You know, you talked about that there was a like a predator nearby, you know.
Yeah.
Like this will tell you if somebody like who is in your neighborhood, you know, that's
Yeah, next door.
registered, you know, a sex offender, all those kind of things. You'd be surprised of like how much shit goes on around you that you didn't hear about on the news or what, you know.
That's why I'm trying to buy some land.
Yep. Yep. We can go
I'm
out
trying to
there.
get
We'll
some.
build a commune or something.
Yeah, I'm down with you. I'm looking at a Bondo now.
Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Nice, yeah. Alexandra?
I think with on to what Marcus said. Sometimes I forget people's names, so I think it was Marcus that just was speaking. Marcus said, "Yeah, getting to know your neighbors. That's all like great stuff. Love it. Absolutely love knowing people who are around you because it's just weird. Like you think about it, and you're like, who are these people? And you're like, I want to know who lives near me because they're living near you. Like you don't want to just like live near you and never know who they are, and your family comes over and like, who are these people? And you're like, I don't know. Like you want to know who they are.
I
But
feel
also with like kids, like I think somebody brought up in the chat, Roblox and stuff like that. On those online kind of things, that's the things that I'm kind of like, ugh. Because I'm like, these kids do not know how to be safe online. And they'll be like, oh, well, I'm just playing a game online with a bunch of other kids. And it's like, I worry about those kinds of stuff because I'm like, do you actually know this person? Do you know what you're doing? They don't know how to be safe. again, they don't know not to tell, hey, like this is, I don't know what they're saying online. I don't know if they're actually like giving out their own personal information or stuff like that. And I'm not a parent, but it still concerns me that they don't really know who they're actually talking to unless it's a friend that they've connected with at school. Like they don't really know because they can just be doing that for like ages. So that's the one thing I don't like about like those kinds of online things for kids is because it's just it worries me because kids are so young and they don't know what they're doing. There's a difference between like us doing an online class or let's say you're getting something on the Facebook market and you like this couch. It's like, okay, let me see if this is actually real or scam. There's a difference between an adult trying to figure something out in that kind of situation rather than a child trying to figure things out and they don't know what to do because a child will say things and those are the kinds of most of the time it's the things that you don't want them to say, like where they live, what's their name, that kind of stuff. You don't want them to say that kind of stuff, and I think that's what concerns me the most is that like they don't know that kind of stuff but they also don't care enough to ask a parent, hey, what should I be careful about? Or hey, if you're okay with me playing on this game, what is something that you want me to watch out for? So you know what I mean? Like with like neighbors are one thing, but I think expanding that to how now we're all online, that is where it worries me because a kid's not going to be able to understand the safety of online as much as an adult would.
Yeah, definitely.
Just to add on to what Alexander, and if there's like an age requirement for an app, they could just kind of lie and just like create the account anyway.
And they know how to do that very easily. It's
Yeah.
And that's why like whenever I watch my younger sister play the game online, I make sure to like monitor her. I'm like watching her. And I'm like, okay, you need to just be careful. You can't trust anybody like on these kinds of games. But I'm also like one of the things I do tell her because her mom's fine with her chatting with other people on the game. But like if don't tell them anything about your personal life. Like just don't say anything about who you are.
Yeah, you have to talk to your kids about
Yeah.
drugs, alcohol, and online behavior, right?
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
The most thing that I always tell them is like if you want to play a game, just play with me. I'll play a game with you. And then like if somebody like because I know she likes to play this game, I'm like, I'll play with you. But if somebody asks you to play, just say no, you're with your sister. That's it. End of the conversation. Don't talk to these other people. Make sure that like because I'll make sure because I know she loves those kinds of games. But if it's not her friend that she knows from a school, that's where it worries me. And so that's why I'm like, okay, I'll play it with you because if she really wants to play it with somebody that she knows and like right next to her, and then I'll guide her through the conversation. I'm like, just don't say anything to them. Just say you're with your sister. That's it. You don't want to talk to them. Just make sure it's like that simple. And those are the kinds of things that I have been able to like guide her around. Rather than that, I worry about what she does when she's alone because when I'm sitting right next to her, it's easier to guide a kid through a conversation about safety through technology rather than it is when you are not. So
Maybe.
I'll just add a little bit of the other side as well. Of course, there are like a lot of dangers of this, and you have to be safe. But on the other hand, I mean, at least anecdotally speaking, um, when COVID started in like early 2020, I was 14, right? And what sort of ended up happening was because a lot of my friend groups, which sort of like consisted of us meeting up together in in real life, sort of fell apart. I made a lot of friends online and like friends from like everywhere in the world, right? I have a couple French friends I still talk to. I have like Swedish friends, and like it was so interesting talking to people from all backgrounds, all different places, and most of them were like my age, right? Some were like a little bit older, but at the end of the day, I think like 99% of people they're good people. And on top of that, like on the internet, meeting up with people who liked the same sort of things I liked, which was like I made a couple of friends that worked in AI, and like these guys have been incredibly useful connections. So like there's just a lot of things, right? You can make really good friends, you can make good connections. Like just overall, it's been really helpful. I've had a very positive experience with the internet and making friends on the internet in general. So just to offer like the sort of other side of this.
Thank you.
So, Emerson.
Yes. We only have a
What
few
a
minutes
guy.
left, and I'm like, how did we get off topic? Well, it was the question about the universal, discussion about nowadays what we have compared to past, and so we got off on the tangent of today, the digital
Oh,
media world, which is, it's all good. I just was like, last 5 minutes, let's talk about Emerson.
yeah, he was also talking about the adults and the child's different view and understanding to the nature. So it was a good conversation, actually. Thank you all.
Did Emerson have any children?
I don't think so. I think they
Yes.
died
He
very
did.
early.
Okay.
He had a boy who died at the age of 5, but he also had 2 daughters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about transcendentalism based on what you read? That's everyone.
Wow. Well, it was a difficult part for me, actually, to understand the actual meaning, not the reading.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is the relationship between individual soul with nature
Yes.
and how you observe what you see, how you feel about what you see randomly, not forcing yourself to see something in the nature.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think Julio, go ahead.
Julio, sorry.
Yeah, I found it grounding in a way. Just kind of like everything that we talked about. It just kind of like brings you back in, to real life, like what the world is around us. It also kind of got me thinking like about like, okay, like what happens when you die. I feel like some people think like that we are energy, and like how does that energy get transferred, or like that everything is connected and just humanity. So I thought it was a very kind of thought-provoking. I enjoyed it. Would I pledge myself to it? Probably not, but but yeah, I think it is something to think about for sure.
Mm-hmm. Michael?
Yeah, I like it. I like the concept. I like it a lot, actually. But there's like in this, in this list of on the transcendentalism webpage, some of the things like about like, going being like anti-government. I don't know. There's some things about it that I'm like, I don't know if I could deal with all that. But I do. I mean, I mentioned when I was a teenager, I got really into like Christianity and reading the Bible and going to Bible things and this and that. And at some point, I was kind of like, is that, and I don't mean to be disrespectful in any way, but to anybody who's into that, but I was kind of like, is that real? I mean, I started kind of questioning, a lot of things that were, written in the Bible. And what I like about transcendentalism is just something that it seems real natural to like, relate to. I mean, it just seems like something that's part of human nature.
Yeah. I believe.
it is an idealistic way of, you know, thinking. It definitely is not a religion. It's more of a philosophy. And I agree with you, Michael. There are some traits that are presented at that website about transcendentalists, what they believe. Not all transcendentalists all agreed with everything on that list. But there were some, there were some who did believe in certain things. And so I understand your comment about the government, kind of thing. It just, those were all considered thoughts that most or many transcendentalists had. But yeah, I mean, it definitely was in contrast to the religious views of the time. Um, not not all would have been supportive of it for sure. I know we have about a minute out. I'm just rechecking class because a couple people left, and I just want to make sure that those of you who were here for the entire time get credit for that. So I'm just
Like, I don't feel disappointed in humanity necessarily.
yes, I understand what you mean. I'm a little disappointed in some ways, but that doesn't mean I'm like anti-humanity. I have to have hope that we can, you know,
Yeah.
that we can do better. Although after today's discussion about kids and what it's like, oh man,
I'm a little disappointed in that.
and you guys are right. Children are reflective of the parent. My daughter grew up, she knew Emerson's name at the age of 5, right? I was reading, Emerson and Edgar Allan Poe and all those. And she's been to Walden and, Concord and all of that kind of thing. So I just, she wasn't on social media by choice her entire life until I think this past year she joined Facebook for the first time. But that was her choice. I just told her, you know, social media is just a way for people to, promote things and, communicate with family and whatnot. But she just chose not to have social media, which is, not the norm, that kind of thing. But she's a big video game player, so I'm not going to deny that. She definitely loves video games, but she likes the video games that are role model, like you have to play a certain role, and she writes literature, and so she's like the liberal arts kind of person. But that's how I raised her, that's just kind of how it is. She's amazing. She's it's like she has an old soul in her, you know compared to, she's never been her age, she's never acted her age, she's always been, her maturity level's always been above. She's more comfortable talking to older people than she is younger people. So anyway, I'm sorry, I'm going on and on about my daughter, but just last couple of things I wanted to check to see if this person left.
You're good. And I know, like, with my conversation, I probably saw like, oh, I think people online are like terrible. You don't talk to me. I'm not that kind of person. I just think that there is a way to understand that not everybody is gonna be the safe person to talk to. I think
Correct.
that it's great that we do have the opportunity to talk to people online, and I do have friends who like that. But I think that I understand. I'm also really good at like looking at a person, meeting with them, and being like, I know exactly what kind of person you're going to be. And so, like, I have very good judgment of who people are because I've never gotten my intentions wrong about a person. I have yet to do that, but I think there is a way to go about that. And I think that as a kid, you're still learning things like social skills and stuff like that. And you don't know how to base off the by their first impression. You don't know how to judge that person correctly unless you're with somebody who's a little bit older with more experience in that area, because you're gonna see, even like with elementary kids, you're gonna see kids who you think are awesome, but then maybe they do something like steal your lunch. Maybe they do that to you. They're gonna miss those little things. But I think those are the kinds of things where you need someone who's a little bit older.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not a complete like I absolutely hate it. No, I just think that there are those developmental parts where as an adult you learn how to judge somebody, and you understand there is that kind of self like gut feeling where it's like, oh, I don't like this vibe of this person. You need to watch out for that one. So,
Yes,
but also this was a
sorry.
great conversation.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
agree. I don't want to interrupt you, but yeah, some people are asking if you're free to go. Of course you are. We're after the time, and I marked everyone who was here, so you're good. Have a great weekend. Keep up with the reading for next week.
Thank you.
And I'll see you then. Yeah, have a good one.
Have a good one,
Bye.
y'all.
See you later.
Thank
Thanks,
you for class,
Marcus.
Dr. G.
Emerson. Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, I
Thank
saw that. I said, look at Dr. G with the earring.
Yeah, that's how Emerson things. Have a good weekend.
Thank you for your notes too. I appreciated that.
Oh, of
I
course.
hope I did things more right this time. I'm just like nervous. I was just there like looking, and I was like, how do I add this together?